187 minutes between when Donald Trump left the stage at the Ellipse, where he had given that rally out the back of the White House, and when he stepped out into the Rose Garden to do that 50-second Twitter video telling the rioters that he loved them and that they should go home in peace because even though the election was stolen, they must go home in peace. What was Donald Trump doing for that 3 and a bit hours? Well, today we kind of found out. He was sitting watching Fox News, which it turns out is what he spent a lot of his presidency doing. There were running jokes throughout the Trump presidency about the so-called executive time, when Trump would be sort of ushered into the dining room off the Oval Office, sat in front of Fox News, given a bunch of chicken McNuggets, and just let us run the country, sir. We'll let you know if we need you to do something like make a speech. Well, he spent that time in the dining room off the Oval Office, but today we learned that he was making phone calls to the likes of his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. He was receiving a lot of phone calls, including from the likes of Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy saying, Mr. President, you must do something to call off this mob. They will only listen to you. This is a very dangerous situation. His own son, Don Jr., his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Sean Hannity from Fox News, everybody was trying to text and get through to Trump, often through Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, to say, call off the dogs. This is getting out of control. This riot is turning deadly. They've breached the Capitol. People could die. And Trump sat back and did nothing. And repeatedly we've heard from White House insiders today that Trump knew exactly what was going on. He was watching it on Fox News and he was revelling in it. Well, we don't know his state of mind. He may have been very concerned, but he did nothing. And that's the important point. He was president, he should have done something, and he did nothing.
Let's talk about the evidence from those White House insiders. What is the significance of what they had to say today?
The way that Adam Kinzinger, who's one of just 2 Republicans on this House committee, has characterised it was that not that the president failed to do anything to stop the violence, but that he chose to do nothing to stop the violence. And that's very important, particularly when the president is being told that Vice President Mike Pence is in the Capitol building, his Secret Service, and we heard very harrowing recordings of Mike Pence's Secret Service detail, who were essentially using their two-way radios to send farewell messages to their families because they believed they were going to die. It was like a scene out of 9/11. They thought they were going to die, that they were maybe going to have to kill protesters in order to save Mike Pence's life, but that the Vice President of the United States' life was in peril. Remember, they're chanting, hang Mike Pence outside at this point. They've breached the Capitol building and they're terrified. So we're getting all this drama unfolding while Donald Trump is sitting back doing nothing. Now, it's the job of the President of the United States to do something. Constitutionally, if a law is being broken, he is required to do something. You and I, Kirsten, don't necessarily have to do something if we see a law being broken. The President of the United States, as the upholder of the American Constitution, is actually legally required to do something in his power. He did nothing, and that was the key takeaway today.
Is this building to a legal case against the former President of the United States?
Lots of questions as to what possible charges could be being considered by the Attorney General Merrick Garland, ranging from interrupting an official proceeding, i.e. disrupting the certification of the Electoral College result by sending that crowd there, all the way through to a charge of seditious conspiracy, where you would have to kind of get a smoking gun tape to say that Donald Trump conspired with the Proud Boys and the rioters themselves, or he did it through an intermediary, but that his hands were all over it. All of the possible charges, though, Kirsten, very hard to prove, and it would be a huge step for any Justice Department to indict a former president, much less a former president who, we understand, is possibly just weeks away from announcing he's running for president again. Typically, the judicial system likes to stay separate from the political system in the United States, and for very good reason. Donald Trump himself broke all sorts of conventions about meddling with the justice system, including his own Justice Department, his Attorney General, and his FBI. But that just because Donald Trump did it doesn't mean it's okay for the Justice Department to do it now. So there, it seems Merrick Garland does not want to lay charges before the midterm elections. He's following a convention that says you don't interrupt a political process by announcing charges or announcing an investigation. It could still happen, but he's indicated he doesn't want to do it. So, does this end up in a legal conviction, or does this simply discredit Donald Trump in the eyes of enough Republicans? And bear in mind, Republicans are taking a leading role in this hearing, even though they're the minority. They're doing most of the questioning. Whether we just come away thinking, do we really want to elect a president who was happy for his vice president to get killed that day? Because that's essentially what we're discovering through this process, amongst all the other things like, trying to steal an election as well, which, not for nothing, is a pretty big deal in America too.
Just finally, is there a sense that Republicans are starting to ask those questions out loud? Because we know that some key Republicans have really come in behind Donald Trump.
Key ones have, Kirsten, you're right, but with the midterms coming up, they have to because Trump is still pretty popular. But we'll wait and see. In December, if the Republicans have their House and Senate majorities, which they look likely to get, will they walk away from Donald Trump then? Maybe, but maybe only if voters start doing it first. Polls in the last week or two show that these hearings have had a negative effect on Trump's approval, and now fewer than 50% of Republicans say that Donald Trump is their choice to be their nominee in 2024. This is a guy who's getting 80-90% support amongst Republicans. So they're now thinking maybe we need to move on. So the more they see Trump as being temperamentally unfit and having behaved poorly in that post-election pre-January 6th period, the more they're maybe going to consider somebody like, hey, Mike Pence, maybe we get a Conservative without the crazy. Maybe we get a Trump mini-me like Ron DeSantis. They might start shopping around, but that's likely to happen later rather than sooner, which is possibly why Donald Trump is talking about declaring he's running for president again sooner rather than later, because he wants to make sure everybody stays in behind him.